Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hi, this is Pari.
And this is Jenny, and we're here to talk about
Bees Books. Well, are we here to talk about Bees Books, Jenny? Because we had quite disastrous news this morning. Well, I had it this morning, you had it earlier.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us what happened?
Yes, so we recorded bits and bobs, and when it went to get uploaded or downloaded or technologically loaded, it was just static.
Yeah?
So yes, I think we're slightly cursed.
We've been cursed by tech gremlins,
Yes.
and quite frankly, we're outraged.
Yes.
Outraged and flabbergasted.
We are.
Because the episode now only exists in our memories.
It does, yes.
It doesn't exist in real life. And we could have recorded it again, as you very sensibly suggested, and as I very not so sensibly responded. I have no memory of what I said, of what you said, of what books we talked about.
Exactly.
Belongs in the past.
Yes.
So it was a fantastic episode, just to let you all know.
Just to make you slightly jealous
Yeah.
that it's disappeared.
Yeah,
and
but you'll
gone.
never know now. It
No.
doesn't, yeah. It just exists in the ether somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe in an alternate universe, it went
Yes.
perfectly and
Yes.
like we won awards and things for this podcast
However,
episode.
here, not so much.
No. Well, hopefully today's theme that B gave us, which you would have known in the Bits and
Yes.
Bobs episode, will distract us because
Yes.
it's Oooooh Sparkly.
Oh, well done. Well
Thanks,
done.
yeah.
I'm still going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Because, I feel
Yes,
as if I've
please.
lost out.
Go away. Go away. Go away. Go away.
Ooh, sparkly.
Oh, yours sounded a bit more sinister there. Yeah.
Well,
Yes. Oh, so do you want to tell us about your sinister question mark
Yes.
books?
So I have two books here.
Okay.
I have The Last Dance by Mark Billingham, which is a crime book.
Okay, so it is sinister.
Yes, and I have the fabulous Once Upon a
Ooh.
Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, which just has a bit of sparkle on the cover, and that's
Yeah.
why I've chosen it.
Oh, lovely. And there's a Headless Knight as well,
There
which
is, yes.
is quite sinister, and a
Yes.
crime novel. So I see you're going with sparkly as in blood.
Yes. How about you? Are you going sparkly as in sparkle?
I am.
Yay.
Yes. So my first book is a middle grade book. It's called The Marvelers by Doniel Clayton, and it's the first in a new middle grade fantasy series. And it's set in the stars. It's like a magical school that's set in the sky, and they use like star post. They sort of communicate via constellations. So lots of sparkly stuff there. So it's sparkling in the book.
Lovely.
And my second book, this is just the second book in the series, The Memory Thieves, that I haven't read yet, but I really enjoyed The Marvelers. And the second book, much like your second book, it's just a really sparkly cover. It's called Circe by Madeline Miller, and it's just really beautiful, no?
I think perhaps we were magpies in a former life, and that we like all the sparkle.
Oh, I'm a magpie in this life also. I'm not a magpie. Yes, she's not just in my former life. But yes, this is also sparkly. But what I wanted to talk about today, I think I'm just using sparkly as sort of a jumping off point to talk about like a specific theme. Like the S and T are like uppercase, like specific theme trademarked. But did you want to tell us about your books first?
No, I
Do you
want
want
to, yes.
the theme? Okay, so I was really sort of fascinated by this book. I grew up reading Harry Potter, right? You love Harry Potter as well. And so going back a little bit, like when I was reading Harry Potter, I was in India. And it's set in the UK, so like lots of British students and but a very specific kind of Britishness is in the books, which is fine because that's when it was written and it was like, we loved it all over the world. But this is almost like a retelling, a reinterpretation of magic schools, just magic schools popular in like canon, that she said that she didn't recognize herself and her culture and her like people who look like her in this magical stories that she read about. So she wanted to write a book where all kinds of people could recognize themselves and see themselves. So she loved the books that she grew up reading, much like myself. And this one is like a global magical school. So it has people from all over the world that come in. we see it from the point of view of the protagonist Ella Durand, who is from New Orleans, and she belongs to a kind of magician tradition that's called conjuring. And that's seen as not as like good and like kind of dirty and kind of seedy because it deals with the underworld and things, so like bad magic, as opposed to this beautiful star magic which the Marvelers do. And she is the first conjurer to go into this magical school because they're trying to be more inclusive now and like getting other people. So she's like an experiment. And she goes in and she's like really excited because she wants to show them that, you know, actually my magical tradition is really beautiful as well, just in a different way. But as you could imagine, it doesn't always, like, not everyone is as open-minded as others, but it's just like, so she makes friends, she makes enemies, just like you do in a magical school. But there's also, I think, a lot of themes of what you take for granted, these stories of like, who is the good guy, who is the bad guy, who is the hero, who is the villain. It's really subverting that a little bit. And I think it's doing that because it's kind of reinterpreting the stories that we grew up reading, where it was very clear who the good guy and the bad guys were. Like in a lot of the Rings, Narnia and things, it's very clear who is good, who is bad. Whereas in this, it's more middling. Like it's just a really fun middle grade fantasy, very contemporary. And the magic system is really unfamiliar to me because it draws on a lot of like New Orleans culture and things which I'm not really familiar with in the US. And also like just stuff from all over the world. Some that I am, like there's a strand of magic called spice magic, where you use it. So there's different kinds of things that you can do. There's smell magic, there's taste, there's touch, spice, which I love, like this Master G Thakur does it. And it's just a very different kind of magic than I'm used to, which I found quite exciting. So I think like the retelling, so that's my theme, retellings, of like contemporary retellings. I think they do such an interesting job of responding to the things that we're concerned with now, which maybe in 1990, when Harry Potter books were being written, were not so prevalent in mainstream imagination. So, and Circe is similar as well. So I don't know if you've come across Circe.
Yes, I've read it, yes.
Yeah, so as you know, and as maybe some people don't know, it's about Circe from Greek mythology, the witch who's banished to an island. And so far, well, not so far, like traditionally, these the translations as well as the original Greek myths were largely written by men and like, or groups of men. Even the translations were translated by men. So women didn't really have as much of like a position in the story, or if they were just accessories or like plot points. Whereas this is kind of reinterpreting it and putting Circe in the center, so not just having her as a villain in the Odyssey where, you know, she's kind of, or whatever she was, this complex. They make her a really complex character, Madeline Miller, and tell it from a different perspective. So even like with this, the Marvelers, or like Harry Potter or whatever, with all these different stories, if you look at it from a different perspective, it can be more interesting as well, just like more fun. So it just really, like, I just was like, I'm really fascinated, again, like I'm using the term fascinated, but I really love how people put in the things that they're really passionate about, they're really concerned with, they're really interested in the stories that they write, because they grew up not recognizing themselves in the stories perhaps. So I don't know if you've heard of Emily Wilson's translation of the Greek myths. So she's a scholar, she's a translator, and the first one she did, I think, was the Odyssey by Homer. She translated it, but she went back to like the original text, and she disregarded the kind of translations that have happened since. And she, like, a lot of the translations she found are assuming like the kind of words and just the power of a word, the way that she uses it. She's drawing on her identity as a woman. She is not making women villainous or accessories or sidelines, like, but it's true to the translation, so it's not a reinterpretation, but it kind of is, because translation is a retelling, and she wouldn't have done this maybe like 50 years ago, because that wouldn't have been allowed, I guess, or like a part of the thing. So she's making, it's not like a feminist reinterpretation or translation, but it feels like it because of women being there, which is so basic, right? Like, of women not being villains or wives or just like there to be like, you know, to sleep with and like just go away. So it just, I just find it like fantastic that this exists. And so it doesn't quite fit in the sparkly theme, like I said, specific theme, but I liked that sparkles gave me a way to talk about this, because this is something I'm really interested in, passionate about.
What I like about books is, or any kind of written word, is you can interpret it in different ways, and it does depend on where you are when you do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, 200 years ago, something might have been interpreted and it was written at that time, but times change, and when somebody else reinterprets it 200 years later, there's different things going on, and so they will see things differently.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, we were talking about Harry Potter, that some people don't recognise. You know, in some instances, that's the point of a book, is to take you and put you somewhere else. So you're maybe not supposed to recognise yourself, but you still need to feel as if you can sympathise or empathise with certain characters. The great thing about books, again, is you can change how that character looks in your head when you're reading it.
Absolutely.
So, you know, if you imagine a character and the author, you know, because some authors don't even give you a lot of information about how they look. They want you to make up your mind. You can make them look like whatever you want. Yes, in the books they'll act a certain way, but you can still kind of imagine things slightly different, and that's the important thing about books, is that you're using your imagination. And I've went completely off topic, sorry.
No, that's absolutely related, because so I don't know how much I've spoken about this, but this is something that I looked at for my PhD, about how people and fans of popular texts, especially like from marginalized and dominant cultures, depending on where they are, how these books that they love, or this media that they love, but maybe they see some gaps in, but they want to talk more about it and see themselves in it, so they almost use it. So like they use Harry Potter or Doctor Who as a shared language to learn about each other's real world identity. So in my research, I spoke to somebody who lives in Dubai, and she in the sort of Western Asia, and she loved Harry Potter, grew up reading Harry Potter, was a part of an Arabic fan forum online in like the early days of the internet for like Harry Potter stuff, and anime as well, like Japanese anime. And she said that, you know, a lot of people in Comic-Con in Dubai will reinterpret the robes of Hogwarts, because they would dress up in like, you know, I've forgotten completely what it's called, like the abayas and the things that the Muslim women wear, which I know, but I can't think of what the term is. But yeah, like they reinterpreted like the Hogwarts robes as that, so they would like dress up with like the colours, like Ravenclaw, Hogwarts or whatever, or like Hufflepuff or whatever, and just see themselves in a way that maybe the text didn't recognize themselves. And there's like people have done that all over the world. Like for a lot of fans, Hermione Granger is like a black character, because they recognize some of the struggles that she has as a she has non-magical cultural heritage, so she's marginalized in the magical world, and they read themselves into that character. So even though it's not really about like the real world, because it's about like magical stuff, and as much as this as well, the Marvelers and Cersei as well, it's about a fantastical world. But the writers, they don't live in a fantastical world. They are responding to the concerns that they have right now. And it is very interestingly portrayed in the books. And like, yeah, it's open, like you said, I think, especially with popular media. So I don't think Daniel Clayton, I don't think anyone is like all the writers of these popular texts should represent everybody, because it's not possible. Like everybody has their own like sort of limitations in knowledge, blind spots, and also interests. But it becomes a way to then inspire more and different, and like imagining differently, which I love.
Yes, and I think you can do that very well with fantasy books, especially because you are inventing a world anyway. You know, you're even historic fantasy, as Cersei is. You know, it's still, you can invent something completely different.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's great. We've read quite a few school-based books, fantasy and otherwise. You know, and this looks interesting actually.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, you know, when you know what the rules are, like with any writing, with like crime, with like whatever, you know the rules, you know how it's supposed to work. So things that assume knowledge of that and then are responding and playing and experimenting with that is so much fun as well. So you have the classics you can return to always, but then there's stuff that's sort of saying like, what if something was
if
different?
we didn't have the classics to begin with,
exactly,
you know, you kind of need a baseline to kind of jump off and work things out.
Oh, I know how I made it. I can match it. So the writers today are like looking at the classics and like, ooh, sparkling bits of it, and then making it.
We got you. That's right. Well, I'm going to talk about one of my books. If that's okay. The first one is a crime book by Mark Millam, and it's called The Last Dance. And the reason I chose this is nothing to do with sparkly blood. It is because it's set in Blackpool, the Vegas of Britain. And
is it the Vegas of Britain?
Well, yeah. Only if you, as I think the character says, close one eye and squint with the other, and upside down, kind of looks like Vegas. But the main character, the detective, also ballroom dances. And so in my head I had the glitter ball, and that's where sparkly
sequins,
all that kind of stuff. So it's the first in the series. I've not read Mark Billingham. He has lots of other books, but I've not read him before. This jumped out at me because it was set in Blackpool, and I really enjoyed it. So the main character, who I have forgotten the name of, Declan Miller, you meet him as he's come back to work after being off for a while, and you kind of learn that he's been off because his wife was killed. And he's come back to be, she was a police officer as well, and he's come back to work. And what I didn't realise is that, according to the book, Blackpool is, I suppose everywhere is the same. You've got lots of gangs. So, you know, I always think of like Glasgow gangs. Yeah. But back in the day, but there's this kind of shadowy world in the background. So it's all fish and chips and ballroom dancing, and then in the background there's this kind of shadowy world, and his wife was in a certain kind of task force that was dealing with some of these things, and she's got killed. So he comes back to work, thinks that he's, you know, ready to come back, and the very first day he comes back, there's a murder in a hotel. Somebody gets shot. They turn up and then they find a body in the room next door. So 2 bodies. One of them is the son of one of the local gangsters. Another one is just a guy. And
is he?
Well, yes. And they have to kind of try and work out. But because it's the same kind of gangs that possibly were involved in his wife's killing, you know, there's lots going on, basically.
So is it contemporary?
Yes, it's set now, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's still gangs in Blackpool?
Possibly, according to the author. I'm sure there are gangs everywhere.
That's
and if
true.
you're not in that world,
that's true. You don't
know. So one of them kind of owns a ballroom, and you know, he does like lots of lovely things at the front, but behind the scenes, you know, there's more going on, kind of a thing.
Oh, but that's really fun. Like, you know, like you were saying about how books can sort of take you to another place, as in that you're introducing you to some place new. So like, obviously we're not, we work in a library, we don't know anything about gang culture, but and like obviously it's not like true to life. Possibly you're taking artistic license and interpretations, but it's still nice to like get a glimpse into, from a safe distance of your sofa,
absolutely,
this different kind of life in like a familiar place. I think Blackpool, so I've never been to Blackpool, but I know that it is like a sort of a big part of British childhoods, like here.
So you go for the dance and the lights. I've been a few times, you know, and it's a seaside town. You know, it is full of fish and chips and things like that. But as I say, this is kind of casting a kind of, you know, behind the scenes look at things. You know, the front is all very glamorous, but what happens behind? But I very much enjoyed the main character. I liked that he was kind of, he talks to his wife. She kind of, this kind of makes it sound as if she's a ghost or whatever, but he kind of has conversations with his wife. But it's very clever because he basically says, you can't tell me anything that I don't already know because you're not real. So he kind of has conversations with her to kind of try and sort things out.
But that's almost like therapy in a way, that you're just talking to somebody, even if that somebody is not there and no longer there. is helping you make these connections that were there in the back of your head but weren't forefronted.
No, exactly. But he keeps saying to her, you know, you could just tell me who killed you. Of course she can't because he doesn't know. But he gets joined up with a new partner as well.
Yeah.
And she's quite cool. She has absolutely no sense of humour whatsoever. And part of his defence mechanism is to make fun of things or to like make a joke of certain things. You know, when he goes in, he kind of stands up and goes, you know, yeah, my wife's dead. Yeah. Let's move on. But kind of makes a joke about it. But she doesn't not get it. But she's like, nah.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't entertain her at all. And he tries to get a wee smile out of her. And it's just, you know.
Oh, well, maybe they'll join the sort of oddball couples, like, you know, just partners, whatever, not like romantic, but like of like fiction, like sort of popular fiction.
I can absolutely see it going somewhere. I can absolutely see, you know, and obviously because it's Blackpool, it doesn't mean it has to be set in Blackpool all the time because, you know, that area is huge. You know, so, you know, but I really enjoyed it. But as I say, Sparkly was because of the glitter ball for the dancing.
I'm still going with blood sparkle. when the light shines right at like a specific angle, blood can glisten and sparkle? Question mark. But that sounds. And I really like the idea of you being in Blackpool, or not you, like the royal you. I guess you all use being in Blackpool and reading a book set in Blackpool as well, especially if you're there for a holiday. And like you're looking at like familiar things in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's crime stories especially about every place. You know, J.T. Kirk's Inverness. You know, and I'm sure that people that live in Inverness think that's an awful lot of bodies. You know, that kind of a thing. And it'll be same with Blackpool or you know even London or somewhere like that. You know, but you know it's not fantasy, but it is fiction. So you're making a different world. This is just more familiar because it's now and it's, you know.
To be fair, I don't know how many dead bodies there are in Glasgow. I live there. I'm like, I don't know how many people
possibly
are dying.
don't want to know because otherwise, you know.
What about your other book?
So my second book is a fantasy book. It's called Once Upon a Broken Heart. It's the first in a possible trilogy. That's all I'm saying. And I did read it a while ago, so I am trying to jog my memory as I'm talking. But what I will say is it dives right in. So there's no kind of introduction to anything, which was great for me because sometimes you think, yeah, I know this, you know, I know how this is going to be set up. So, but basically, the main character, who is called something really, really weird, Evangeline, which is not weird, but you know, it's not it doesn't roll off the tongue.
Commonplace name.
Yes, Evangeline Fox, I believe her name is. Who basically liked this guy, he liked her, and all of a sudden she finds out he's marrying her stepsister. So she goes to see the Jack of Hearts, who is like this fate, they're called, so this kind of almost mythical kind of person, to petition to see if she can get things changed. However, he is a real person, he is there as she goes in, and so she makes a bargain with him. And as we know, when you make a bargain with somebody who's a fate or, you know, somebody like that, it's not going to be how you imagine. So basically the whole wedding party turns to stone. Because, yes.
So, as they do.
Yes, to stop the wedding, everyone gets turned to stone, which is not what she wanted, obviously. She just wanted something nice.
Well, you should have thought about that, Evangeline, before messing with fate.
So the story goes, I mean, that's like in the first few pages, and it just keeps going from there. It's quite a book, you know, there's no kind of... and then we watch the trees, you know, the action is just constant. So she herself makes things change, but again not in the right way, because she's trying to solve one problem and then she makes another problem, and then
I quite like the sound of this chaotic Evangeline Fox.
There is a map at the beginning of the book as well, which I love a map, and it is
beautiful. I would want that on my wall, my art gallery wall at home.
It's beautiful.
Oh, there is a Chaos's underground kingdom.
Yes, vampires.
Oh.
So she eventually has to go to this other land, So there's a wee touch of magic in her land. She, her father, before he passed away, had a curiosity shop, and some things in this shop were slightly magical. The bell on the door, for example, would ring a different way depending on the customer and things. It did try to warn her about the boy coming into the shop for the first time, but she was paying no attention because, ooh, Sparkly, man, like him. So she gets sent to this other kind of land, which is more magical, and their stories are this is going to sound really weird, but their stories are slightly cursed. So whereas we can retell a story for 100, 200 years, and it might change slightly in the telling, but the basis of it is the same. Some of their stories are changed every single time they're told, so the original story disappears completely. Some stories can't be told out loud at all. There's a lot of kind of things drawn from things that we're familiar with, but just changed slightly. So it turns out these fates have reappeared, and they've been sent to this kind of place. And she makes another bargain with this Prince of Hearts, and it just spirals out of control. But at the basis of it, it's kind of like a love story, but a young girl's love story, as in she's got this ideal of what it's supposed to be, and she kind of learns as she goes along that actually real life isn't like that. And it ends brilliantly, and I have the second one ready to go.
Lovely.
In house. But like we were saying, it's taken a lot of like things that we're used to, you know, stories and myths and legends and things, and just kind of turning them around slightly. You know, the fates kind of are more like a mixture between tarot card people and like myths and legends that we think of. So we've got the Jack of Hearts, who kind of, he himself has had a broken heart and therefore understands people with broken hearts. That's a nice version, but the actual version is he's the Jack of Hearts because, you know, he got a broken heart, and so he, you know, knows what it's like, but doesn't think that anyone really should have a happy ending if he can't have a happy ending. You know, so it's things...
Very, very healthy attitude there. Doesn't need therapy at all, that man.
So we meet another couple of fates as we're going along. So there's, I want to say Poison, and they have like, you know, they kind of know all the poisons and the antidotes and things like that, and people go to that fate if they want, you know, certain love potions or, you know, death potions, I suppose.
I love the sound of it.
Yes, and Chaos as well. We meet Chaos, who's like a vampire, and I just absolutely loved it. It just built a world that was familiar yet different. And as I say, the cover's slightly sparkly, and that's how I wedged it in.
I love that. So I was also listening to this book, which is about something completely different. It's about cooking and food and recipes. So how is that going to be connected? Your face asks yes with a question mark. But she said something so interesting, like audiobook. She's like, recipes, right? They are never the same thing to everybody. Because like if like you, for example, are cooking for your partner or for your family, you might tweak things based on what's on in your cupboard, based on the likes and dislikes. Some people like a lot of garlic, some people don't like any garlic, some people are allergic to stuff, and you know, you'd like make it different based on who you're making it for, based on your own preferences, based on what you think about the person that you're cooking for. And the story, like, maybe you do want to give them an allergic reaction to something.
You don't like onions? Oh, sorry. Whole onion in here.
So, you know, it's like the recipes, they're never this static thing. So she looks at this as a source text that people are almost like playing with and like making anew, and like making not necessarily better but different, better for them, or like just like it's convenient for them. And I feel like these stories, when I was thinking about that, I was thinking of that in terms of books, and they're doing a little bit of that as well. They're finding new audiences, they're finding new things, like they're leaving some things aside, focusing on some things and bringing them to the foreground in ways that the original text didn't have, the original recipe didn't have. And it's lovely that there's, you know, so much possibility and room for play.
Yeah.
That it's not, because I know some people don't like their text to be messed with, especially.
No, and some people will want a Victoria sandwich that was the Victorian sandwich that their mum made, which they got out of a book, you know, 40 years ago.
With no deviation.
Absolutely not.
And that's fine.
Yes.
There's like plenty of traditional Victorian sandwiches, Victoria sponge cakes for them. But for those who are open to more adventure, I guess, in culinary or like in like their literature, there's stuff for them. So I think it's just wonderful.
There is something for everybody.
There
is
is.
Basically at the end of the day what we're trying to.
Yes, absolutely. So I think hopefully this has recorded without static. Otherwise, it's just going to be in the ether again.
Yes.
We're going to test it.
Yes, we are.
But I mean, Bea was thrilled with our last episode. She loved it. It was a favourite episode ever. But hopefully she's happy with this one.
I'm sure she
as well.
will be. I'm sure she will be.
So do you know what our next thing is coming up with?
Yes, I do, and it's a bit of an odd one, because I think that's around about a year now that we've been going.
That's right.
And our very first theme was a song title, Here Comes the Sun. So she's kind of went back to that in a roundabout way. And the next theme is Chasing Waterfalls, which is not such a well-known song.
No, I know it, and I'm very musically literate, so well done, Bea.
So yes, Chasing Waterfalls.
Okay, I have no idea, but possibilities are endless.
Yes.
But yes, thank you so much for listening. If you have been listening.
If not, we're going to re-record this, and there might be tears at the beginning.
There might be tears. So hope to save yourself and us from the tears. Hopefully this is fine.
Yes.
But thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.